Welcome back to Warm Embrace, a soft place for the hard parts of being human. This is the final episode in our series on healing and emotional growth. Over the last few weeks, we've explored the beliefs we've carried, the difference between shame and guilt, and the permission to rest without needing to earn it. Today, we're bringing all of those conversations together because healing isn't always about finding the perfect answer. Sometimes, it's about loosening our grip on the things we've been carrying for far too long. Healing doesn't always happen when we force ourselves to let go. Sometimes it begins when we stop fighting so hard to hold on. Many of us quietly believe healing will arrive one day, when we finally get the apology, the explanation, the conversation, the closure. We imagine that one perfect moment where everything suddenly makes sense. And sometimes, that moment never comes. Not because our healing isn't possible, but because healing was never meant to depend entirely on someone else's ability to give us what we needed. One of the things I find most comforting about nature is that nothing in it seems to force change. Leaves don't cling to branches forever. When the season changes, they simply become ready to fall. Snow doesn't argue with spring. It quietly melts. The tide doesn't apologize for leaving the shore. Morning doesn't force the night away. It simply arrives. Nature rarely hurries itself. And somehow, everything still changes. Maybe healing works a little like that too. Sometimes we keep holding on because it feels safer than letting go. We replay conversations, search for answers, imagine different endings. Not because we enjoy the pain, but because our minds are still trying to complete something that feels unfinished. Holding on isn't weakness. Often, it's simply our way of trying to make sense of what hurt. But even the strongest hands become tired if they never put anything down. Sometimes people think letting go means pretending something never mattered, or convincing ourselves we're over it. But healing rarely asks us to erase what happened. It asks something much gentler. To stop carrying it with the same intensity. Grief doesn't always disappear. Sometimes it simply softens. Like waves that once crashed against the shore, eventually become quieter. Still present, but no longer pulling us under. The word surrender can sometimes sound like defeat, as though we're giving in, giving up, accepting less than we deserved. But perhaps surrender is something different. Perhaps it's trusting that we no longer have to carry every unanswered question, every regret, every hope that someone else may one day become who we needed them to be. Not because those things didn't matter, but because we've realized they no longer need to weigh quite so heavily. For so long, many of us approach healing like another problem to solve, another mountain to climb, another version of ourselves to become. What if healing isn't always found in doing more? What if sometimes it's found in allowing? Allowing yourself to feel, to rest, to remember, to grieve, to laugh again without guilt, to slowly discover that life continues growing around the places that once hurt. Just as a tree continues growing around an old scar on its bark, perhaps we do too. Not because the scar disappears, because life keeps unfolding around it. Let's pause here for a moment. What have you been gripping so tightly that your hands have forgotten what rest feels like? And what might happen if, instead of forcing yourself to let go, you simply loosened your grip, one finger at a time? Sometimes our nervous system believes that holding on keeps us connected to people, to memories, to hope. So loosening our grip can feel frightening, almost as though we're losing something important. But healing often asks something quieter. Not to forget, not to stop caring, simply to stop carrying everything with the same intensity. Sometimes that's where freedom quietly begins. Healing doesn't always arrive through effort. Sometimes it arrives through permission. Permission to stop forcing. Permission to soften. Permission to trust that some things don't need to be solved before they can become lighter. Like autumn leaves returning gently to the earth, some things don't need to be torn away. They simply become ready to fall. Thank you for listening to A Warm Embrace. Take what lands, leave what doesn't, and be kind to yourself today. I'll see you next week.